Thanks for your support on new channel. Creepypasta rules. We are posting new videos daily. Hit the bell icon and set it to all, so that you will not miss any update. r/Nosleep. Posted by u/likeeyedid. Check out author's subreddit. r/likeeyedid. I work in a lamp store. We sell light in the shape of bad fortune. Part 2. When I made my way to work after a day of hardly any sleep, I started seeing this town in a whole different light. This place that I was calling my home now. From my small apartment, it is only a 5-minute bicycle ride to Evergreen Avenue where I work, but I decided to walk, so I would have a chance to really look around. I never really do that on my bike. I put my earphones in and focus on nothing but the street ahead. It was getting darker, but where I was walking now, the street lamps were all shining. I walked through the big marketplace and inspected the little stores. Most were closed, others were getting ready to call it a day. I'd never noticed before, but all those storefronts looked like they would fall over if you only pushed hard enough. Restaurants were still serving, the one sitting and chatting outside on the terrace. The scenery resembled a picture from a magazine. I passed a few people, some greeted me with a smile, but I didn't recognize their faces. And then there was something else. Something so odd that it surprised me that I never thought about it before. This town had no church. It didn't seem right. Even the smallest of towns have at least one church, somewhere in the center. I wasn't particularly religious, maybe that's why I never noticed before, but now that I had myself conscious of it, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. And now that I let the thoughts of worry inside, there was no way of stopping them. Until this day I wouldn't have thought of myself as a necessarily suspicious individual, but with only one question this damn Leon had gotten right to the core of my head. This town was my home and it felt like it in every way, but it wasn't where I was born. I lived somewhere else before, I just couldn't quite remember where that was. I wondered why I never went to visit anyone outside of this place, but I never really felt lonely and therefore the need wasn't very present. If everything felt right, then was it really wrong? I suppose it was. Or maybe I was craving something that felt wrong, because despite what my gut and mind had told me last night, I was back on my way to the lamp store. After I'd almost died. After I met something that will forever haunt me in my nightmares. And after I played a part in giving someone I didn't even know bad fortune for a very long time. It all seemed perfectly mad, but then again, Leon was right. I couldn't leave. I'm not sure how or why it never occurred to me before, but I was bound to this place. And while that was the case, I might as well find out as much as I could about this new profession I now had at night. The one involving playing with the fate of strangers. It's actually rather nice to be making some decisions for once, even if they are for others. As I finally got to Evergreen Avenue, the lamp store was prominently lit, guiding my path to work. I was rummaging through my bag looking for my keys when I looked through the glass door and noticed there was someone inside already. 2 people actually. I wasn't sure whether I was hoping or dreading to meet Mr. Nips in there, but as I opened the door I recognized the face of Leon instead. He was talking to some man who turned around the second he heard me walk in. It wasn't anyone I had met before. This stranger, who couldn't be older than 36, looked like the kind of person that could actually afford to purchase our extraordinarily expensive lamps. His blonde hair was drained of gel, his suit was perfectly fitted, his bow tie was matched, his pockets square. His clothes looked new and well chosen, but you could tell it was only a costume. His face appeared as if it would break any second if he only smiled a little harder. I could swear the light of every single lamp inside the store was reflected in his notoriously bright teeth. "Good evening." The man with the perfect smile and waxed mustache spoke. I turned towards Leon, who looked a lot more agitated than yesterday. He stood behind the counter with his fingernails dug into the desk in front of him. His eyes were opened wide as if he was trying hard not to panic. "Now thank you for this wonderful offer, you have been more than helpful, but I should get going. It's getting real dark out there," the stranger chuckled. Leon didn't respond. His eyes seemed empty. The stranger winked at me and left the store with a big brown shopping bag. "What the hell was that about?" I asked as the door closed behind him. "Well, you just missed one of our most horrific customers. He likes to spread torture in bulk. That's why he always gets some artistically crafted fairy lights. Nips orders a bunch for him alone. So he gets to give even more people bad fortune? And you pick them all?" I couldn't believe the bullshit I was saying. Leon nodded. "He was here for a whole hour." I moved closer to the register. "My shift hasn't even started, the sun is just setting. Did he come in here when it wasn't dark yet?" "He came in the in-between period. He's a bit different than the others, so you never really see him in the middle of the night. He comes in before we are even officially opened. I don't get any of this. I thought he was gonna roll his eyes, but he actually looked understanding. I thought you weren't gonna come back? I even volunteered in taking your shift, he said. Well, it's not really a choice, is it? I responded. Did you think about what I said yesterday? He whispered. About where I'm from? I asked. He nodded. Yeah, just like you said. I have no idea. I can't say where I was before I came here, but I also don't feel like I'm missing anything, I said. His gaze shifted towards the door of the store. I don't remember either, he whispered even more quietly, but I feel like I knew you before. Well, I've been working here for a while now. Maybe you noticed me once when I was working days, or you saw me in town. No, I only come out here at night. Something is wrong, I can tell. I sighed. More wrong than pushing innocent strangers into their misery? Leon got up from behind the counter and started turning on even more lights inside the store, like it wasn't shining bright enough already. They're not always innocent. You just have to pick the right ones. Usually, that would be whoever the customer is not trying to make you pick. I nodded. I don't know if I can make that distinction. Last night I couldn't choose at all. But now you know you'll die a horrible death if you don't. And as I'm here now anyway, I don't mind staying a little longer tonight and helping you out a little. He smiled. Before I could even answer, we were interrupted by a deafening noise from next door. Is the pub open? I asked. Yeah, let me check what's going on. You stay here. He didn't even wait for a response before storming off towards the door. There he stood still for 1 second as he turned around. Whatever you do, don't go out on the street. You're kind of in the spotlight here. I took a seat on the stool, hoping the strange gentleman from before wouldn't come back. He didn't, but it didn't take long before someone else did. An older lady in a colorful gown. Her red lipstick was cracked and smudged in the corners of her lips. Her black eyeliner was dripping down her face and her smile showed a set of rotten teeth. Hello, I said. She didn't respond. Instead, she started walking through the store smelling the different lamps. Can I help you? I asked. It smells rotten in here. Can you breathe? She asked. I nodded. It's really awfully strong, I just can't identify the source. She shrugged. Anyway, I would like to purchase a lamp. I saw one in the storefront that seemed perfectly fine. She pointed her hand towards a crystal lamp. If I'm correct, it's made out of diamonds? I am in need of something that might get things bloody. I swallowed. I'm not sure what the lamps do. Of course, you don't, she chuckled. But I am sure you'll learn. Would you like to hear whose blood will be spilled by a very bad fortune? Do I have a choice? Even better, you have 3. Number 1 would be a young girl whose soul is rather tainted. You could forgive her considering her age, but in time she might put a few more lives at risk. And on top of that, all she enjoys it with all her heart. How old are we talking? The lady only responded with a smile. The second prospective recipient is no other than the brother of the girl. In his essence, he has no interest in pain. However, his definition of bad luck would probably be if his little sister was harmed. I had to pay proper attention. Leon said these customers like to guide the decision. I just wasn't sure whether that meant that they were lying about the aspects describing the victims. If I had to make a choice, of course I would want the person who does the most harm to receive bad luck, but how could I make that decision with such little information? I see your mind working already. It's not always easy to choose the fate of another, even if it is anonymous. I nodded. The lady smiled again, but this time it was more sympathetical. Now let us continue with the last one. I have only a little information on this individual. They are living at a place I have little access to. It seems they are already living inside of a curse in a way, she laughed. That's not exactly helpful. Maybe we could wait for my colleague to come back and help me decide? Look, girl. Whatever decision you make, it will never be right. You are playing with humans. And yes, many of us do. Well, most of us do. But the decision you ultimately make is based on your sense of right and wrong, so all you can do is try to be informed and hope your gut doesn't lie. This woman, whose appearance scared me at first, was starting to make more sense than anyone else I'd talked to in these last days. I figured it might not be a terrible idea to get as much information out of her as I could. Whether those were lies or not would be something I would have to decide afterward. How intense are the effects of these lamps? I thought they only brought bad luck, but you were speaking about blood. She slowly walked through the shop, gently striking different lamps with her fingertip. The lamps had no negative effect on her, which made me wonder why I almost bled out when I grabbed the shattered mirror lamp. It can be a bit of bad luck, slipping, waking up late, making awkward conversation in an appropriate setting. Although your very colleague once sold me a lamp that cost a man his life. One man that surely was bad in the past, but he was right on his path for the better. It's a tough business. Where do the lamps come from? I asked. A place that you won't ever visit, dear. It can't be found, just as this town and this avenue cannot be found. It's for the best though, that other town is cursed. It reeks of death and poison. She went back to the front where the diamond lamp stood and turned towards me. I'm afraid I will need your answer now. I swallowed. I had absolutely no idea who to pick. The girl seemed to deserve it the most, but if she received the bad luck, which apparently could even be death, then her brother would be hurt too. I suddenly felt an arm over my shoulder. I would pick the girl. Most evil, am I right? It was Leon. When the hell did you come in? And how? I said as I pulled away from him. Back door, he smiled. Good evening, Miss Smithville, he winked at the older lady. He looked fine, a lot more confident than earlier, but something was wrong. Something had happened next door. He had spatters of blood all over his shirt and some on his face. What's going on? I whispered. There was something terrifying about his sudden calmness. Despite the blood. The lady, whose name apparently was Smithville, turned her gaze towards me, spoke in a far more monotonous tone. Your lovely colleague seems to be an expert in choosing fate. Her words did not match her expressions. Her eyes were opened wide, her smile had disappeared. And I could swear that for a second she was shaking her head. I swallowed. Leon seemed trustworthy so far, but my gut was telling me that this decision was wrong. I picked the third one, I blurted out before I knew what I was saying. I looked at Leon, whose dark eyes were suddenly filled with disgust. A shiver went down my spine. A part of me believed I had made a horrible decision. I'm responsible for this stranger getting hurt. Congratulations, you sent some poor soul into its misery. How does it feel? Leon asked a little too enthusiastically. I didn't answer. Instead, I got a bag for the lamp that the lady had now officially purchased. I better get going now, the sun is about to rise, she said. I walked towards the door with her, where she took another big sniff of our shop. It's even stronger now, you need to do something about this rotten smell. I had no idea what she was talking about. I will be back soon, goodbye. She called out into the shop, and as I opened the door for her, she turned to me once more and whispered, be careful. I slammed the door shut, filled with both rage and disgust. This night at the lamp store had been even more horrible than the one before, because suddenly I had all these intrusive thoughts in my mind. I thought I would throw up any second. What was going on next door? Leon took a look at his watch and moved his gaze up towards me. Oh, just some drunk idiots, nothing to worry about. How are you feeling? Not great. He smiled. It's not an easy job, but you'll get there. Don't worry about that wrong decision today, you'll get the hang of it. He grabbed his jacket and came closer towards the door. I should get going before Nips shows up. I'm not supposed to help you. Well, my shift is almost over anyway. I looked outside the glass door. The sun was about to rise. The night hours in here pass surprisingly fast. Exactly. And tomorrow you got a night off, enjoy that. He smiled as he reached around me to get to the door handle. Before I could ask any more questions, he already walked off into the dark. I was left feeling even more confused, but at least the sick feeling in my stomach had passed. I caught myself thinking about the things Leon had told me yesterday and earlier this night. About remembering me. For a moment I thought I did too. And I thought maybe he was the one person that I might be able to trust. But then I realized that he had lied about something earlier. This store doesn't have a back door.